been ostensibly single-sex for over 200 years, and that duty is no longer upheld. So finally, I want to give a huge shout out to all the women who helped make the banner journey possible, who carried it, drove it, posted it, photographed it, and all the women who are here today who've come by car, tube. I know some people have actually flown in to be here today. So a huge thank you to all of you, to all of us, because beyond the films and the banner and this moment today, we're all part of something unstoppable with the message, who could disagree? No men in women's prisons, keep prisons single sex.
First speaker is Joan Smith. Joan Smith is an author and journalist. She's the author of Misogynies and chaired the Mayor of London's Violence Against Women and Girls for 8 years. She's on the advisory board of Sex Matters, sorry, I've got hair in my mouth, and writes for various newspapers and websites. Her latest book about Roman women is a bestseller. Please welcome Joan Smith.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. What I wanted to say is that the way
Use the speaker would be better.
There's a megaphone. Emma, can we have the megaphone now, sorry.
what do I press?
Data, I think.
So does this work? Yeah. So I've spent about 30 years of my life writing about male violence against women. And what astonishes me is that things just get worse and worse. And I think we're now in the middle of a full-fledged crisis. So yesterday, a young man was convicted of murdering a woman in Bournemouth and attacking her friend. And he simply went there, he had no connections with the place, he went there to find women to attack. And men who do this kind of thing, they don't suddenly change overnight. There are red flags in their behaviour, as it was for many years in the behaviour of the man who attacked the girls and the teacher at the Southwark event last summer. So we all know that men are incredibly violent.
Hold nearer.
So we know that men are incredibly violent, we know that women are at risk, and yet the idea that the most vulnerable women who are being sent to prison for non-violent crimes are then being expected to share facilities, sometimes with men who themselves are being convicted of violent and sexual offences. I think it's not just a scandal, it actually says something about the indifference of the political class towards women's safety. And we can see that in the fact that we have all these laws against rape and sexual violence and domestic violence. They are not enforced. We have the police often get criticised, and I think rightly so, for their priorities. But clearly, protecting women is not one of their priorities, and they complain all the time that it's too difficult to prosecute men for violent offences and rape. And so we are effectively on our own. And then you take a group of women who, most women in prison, as you know, over half of the women in prison have suffered head injuries. Many of them are themselves victims of domestic violence. And then you actually have governments that say it's all right to lock those women up and force them to share intimate facilities such as showers and changing rooms with men, and with men who actually remarkably have their weapon with them when they're put in prison, because we know that trans women very, very rarely have surgery. We know that the men who are locked up in these prisons have abused. And we know that the women that they're locked up with are at risk from them. So I think it isn't just, it's not a single campaign. It's part of a wider campaign against violence against women. And I live in a state of perpetual disappointment that it's such a low priority. And I until I left the Labour Party, which I did in the summer, I for years was banging on doors and, you know, asking people to vote Labour. And in all that time, which must have gone on for about 20 years, not a single person ever asked me what the Labour Party was going to do to reduce violence against women. This is not a doorstep issue. It's remarkable. And last couple of years ago, when somebody was canvassing me, and I asked him for Labour, and I asked him, what is a woman? And it was in the local elections, and he said, that isn't a local issue. And I said, I don't know if you've noticed the area you're standing in, but approximately half the people you're talking to are female. But, you know, that kind of indifference towards us and towards our safety actually is summarised for me by what happens to women.
It's live shown everywhere, guys.
By the fact that so many politicians are indifferent to the idea that it's okay to put women in prison with violent men and leave the women to sort it out. I noticed that there was, in Scotland, 2 or 3 years ago, there was an interview with a woman who'd been in prison in Scotland, and it was one of the, I think it was the big prison where at Stirling, where they were allowing male prisoners in there. And she was so afraid of being raped that she went to the prison doctor and asked to be fitted with a coil. Now, any prison authority being faced with, in a women's prison with that kind of request, should know that something really, really serious had gone wrong. And yet they just said, okay, we can fit you with a coil. I mean, this is absolutely astonishing, the indifference to women's safety. So basically, I won't talk for much longer because I know there are other speakers, but I think we have to see this campaign as part of a larger campaign to break through the absolute indifference there is towards the safety of women and the privacy that we're entitled to expect. So thank you.
Hi. Some of the work that we did on the build-up to coming here, we're all sort of in our little groups near the different prisons, and we've been doing some street turfing. We've produced a leaflet, sorry I forgot to bring the example, but also we have been giving out these postcards to Write to Your MP, and we have covered York, Warrington, Bolton, Sheffield, Derby, Bromley, Newton Abbot, and Newcastle and Durham. And if you can tell by my accent, that's the two locations that my group did, Newcastle and Durham. Although there's 20 miles between the two cities, there couldn't be more polar opposite with the response that we got from the leaflets and stuff. Newcastle definitely are on our side, whereas Durham, with all the students and everything, they were quite hostile to us standing in the market square in Durham that day. But we're definitely going to do more street turfing, and that's what's going to be happening in the future. Next up, we have Sarah Filmore. Sarah Filmore is a barrister specialising in child protection law. She joined Fair Cop in 2019, campaigning to secure the political impartiality of the police and the rights of all to protected political speech. Please welcome Sarah Filmore.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes! I can start by saying that 100% of chatty cab drivers understand and are with us. Yes! From the results of my not very scientific research on frequent trips to London. In fact, my cab driver today introduced the massive fine paid out by Sussex. People understand, they know what's happening, but that's only because of the work of you and the street turfs. A couple of years ago, I don't think we'd all be arrested, wouldn't we? So it's the work of everybody in this field that has given us the right not just to think these things, but to say them. And it's really interesting because the cab driver asked what was going on and said, going to protest. He said, what's about? He said, what got you into this? And it's a bit embarrassing because my reasons are not noble. I got into this because I was threatened. I was threatened online with being reported to the police, being reported to my employer for simply raising a question about why...
No more men!
Woo!
No more men! Yeah! No more men! Yeah!
are worth having. I was threatened online for simply raising a question. Why was it that men were allowed to identify as women? Just something as simple as that. No abuse, it was a gentle query, and immediately the threats came rolling in. And I thought, if this is something so significant that the immediate response to a gentle question is a serious threat, then we are in trouble. And I was right. And part of the reason we're in trouble is that women like me had no clue what was going on. We were living in our bubble, raising our children. I didn't even know the Gender Recognition Act was a thing. That was 2004. So 2018, I woke up. And ever since then, right, coming through.
Thank you.
And I think that was a turning point for a lot of us. And I appreciate there have been people who've been aware and political for a lot longer. I think of Germaine Greer and my heart breaks. She must have felt so alone. So apologies to all those who knew and who fought and who were alone. You're not alone now. I think for most of us we'd agree that 2018 was the wake-up call. And what's happening to women in prisons is one of the most appalling things. And I think it was said deliberately, wasn't it? We'll go for the prisons, because nobody gives a shit about prisoners, women in prisons. And once we've established that men can have access there, we'll get it everywhere. Well, they were nearly right. But the turnout today and the enthusiastic support from those going by shows that they are now wrong. Yay! So thank you everybody for turning up. Thank you for everybody who's helped me to wake up. And keep on street turfing.
Follow us on our X account, no M in W prisons, to find out what our future plans are. If you're keen on doing some street turfing, we've pretty much got representatives from everywhere here today, so get in touch and we can get you hooked up on the WhatsApp groups and do some local action. I think that really, talking to people on the street is really beneficial, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. And the hashtags, no men in women's prisons and keep prison single sex. Yes. Our next speaker is Bernadette O'Malley. She's a campaigner for women's rights and the UK's contact for Women's Declaration International. In 2024, she stood as a candidate in the general election for the Party of Women, with a clear mission to restore safeguarding and to rectify the corruption of policies, laws and guidance brought about by the substitution of sex with gender. Please welcome Bernadette O'Malley.
Yeah, if you actually Google me,
Use
it
the
says
speaker.
politician.
Just speaking to it. Yeah, Google me. It says politician. I said that to all my family. I was like, that's me, that is. Anyway, instead, my name's Bernadette, and I'm the UK country contact for Women's Declaration International, and I did proudly stand as Party for Women candidate in Hertfordshire, South West. WDI are committed to defending the sex-based rights of women globally, and I would ask you to check out our website, www.womensdeclaration.com. It's going to be a bit ranty. Women's rights are based on the fact that we are women. We are not a stereotype, a collection of adjectives, accessories, or dress codes. We are women. We are society, not separated from it. We are not the support system, the breeding stock. We are society. We stand together with men. We have that right. Rights that have been hard won and that we are unfortunately still fighting for. Today we are here because the human rights of women in our prison service are being violated by being forced to be housed with men. The basic human rights, the ones we all have because we're alive and because we're human. And women are human. We have rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of which the UK is a signatory. And here are a few notable mentions. First, Article 3. No one shall be subject to torture or to inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. I couldn't remember it. This is an absolute right, one that cannot be limited or balanced against other considerations. And Article 6, please remember Article 6, the right to be recognised as a person before the law, which ensures that the individuals are entitled to equal treatment under the law. Equal. Let's just remember that, equal. Women are human. This is an absolute right, one that cannot be limited or balanced against other considerations. So women are human, we need to say it loud, and women in the UK prisons are being subject to inhumane and degrading treatment by being forced to share cells, showers and other intimate spaces with male offenders, some of whom have histories of sexual and violent crimes. Many women here so many women here have been highlighting this for years. And I thought I'd just give you a little bit of my history because I'm up here on the ladder. So I went to speak to David Gork, Secretary of State for Justice, back in 2018. He was my MP. Some of you here may know of the Female Offender Strategy. It had just been produced, and the Ministry of Justice was moving down a holistic, evidence-based approach to female offending, including rehabilitation. And I was hopeful for a really constructive meeting. I have to say I had other meetings with him, I liked him, but he was a man of his day. So when writing this, I went back to the email that I sent him after that meeting, and this is just a little extract from it. And this was the same meeting when I told him that one day there would be an inquiry, and he would be sitting there saying why he had ignored women's Article 3 absolute human rights. But anyway, different story. So this is what I wrote. Yeah, I know. Anticipation. Go for it. I would also like to address another of our concerns, that is the inclusion of men in female prisons. I believe you have been misinformed with the rhetoric regarding mass suicide of the trans women if they remain in male prisons. This was the rhetoric of the day. The politicians had only been briefed on the harms to men. Yet the information was out there, and I'm just going to read this to you. So in 2015, Dr. James Bartlett, President of the British Association of Gender Identity Specialists, he wrote evidence to the, there was a review, Miller was doing it, everyone was sending in about the prisons. And he wrote, the ever-increasing tide of referrals of patients in prisons serving long or intermediate sentences for serious sexual offences. These vastly outnumber the number of prisoners incarcerated for more ordinary, non-sexual offences. It has been rather naive suggested that nobody would seek to pretend transsexual status in a prison if this were not actually the case. There are, to those of us who have actually interviewed the prisoners, in fact, very many reasons why people might pretend this. These vary from the opportunity to have trips out of prisons, through to a desire for a transfer to a female estate, through to the idea that the parole board will perceive somebody who's female as being less dangerous, through to a false belief that hormone treatment will actually render one less dangerous. So, I won't read all of it actually, because I didn't realise how long I'm only on page 3. So this is 2016, and here we are, nearly 10 years later, part of a campaign with a sign saying no man in women's prisons has been displayed outside every woman's prison in Great Britain. So, situation that women still find themselves in. And because I'm from WDI, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the articles within the Women's Declaration on Sex-Based Rights that are violated by putting men in women's prisons. And that is Article 1, based on which is women's rights are based on sex, biological sex and not gender identity. And Article 8, that we push for the elimination of violence against women. There was, I'm just going to go actually to a couple of recent ones. So these, I think, were both violated by the inclusion of Paris Green. That was reported this year, a convicted murderer and torturer who was placed in a women's wing of HMP Edinburgh. So, still carrying on. Don't worry. Not much left to go. The wrong way around. And then again, another case, which is Article 3, of reaffirming the rights of women and girls to physical integrity. March this year, there was a prisoner, the policy came out, it was reported in the Sunday Times, the searching of women by trans prison, by men. So it says it on here, I'm reading the title in the Times article. Yeah. They say, women are human and trans women are men. So the practice, lots of these practices convene the actual existing legal frameworks that are here at the moment, and they're just totally being ignored. So we're calling on our government to recognise that women in prisons are human beings, not accessories or props, and not the audience for men. We have actually got a campaign running at the moment called Restore Safeguarding and Sex Falsification, where we call for the removal of gender identity in law, policy and guidance. The safeguarding failures have basically come about because of the fiction that people can change their sex. So we are calling for the complete removal of this fiction from law. Repeal the GRA, remove gender reassignment from the Equality Act, and end the de facto self-ID through policy and guidance. So thank you very much. Please check out our website, and remember, loudly, be annoyed about this. Women are human, we have rights, they are absolute rights, and we should stand up for them. A bloke in a dress may want to feel how he wants to feel, but we have a right to not have torture and I can't remember the word. Thank you very much from the back. I love my haters. Thank
You're a part-timer.
No, it is since about half show.
Fair enough. Starts half 12. I arrived at part-timers time.
I believe you two came late.
Thanks for coming today, everybody. It's been brilliant turnout. Thanks very much. Follow us on our X account, No M in W Prisons, the hashtags No Men in Women's Prisons and Keep Prison Single Sex. This isn't over until there are no men in women's prisons. Keep prison single sex! Keep prison single sex!
Keep prison single sex!
Women are not human shields!
Women are not human shields!
Keep prison single sex!
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 Keep
Prison single sex! No men in women's prison! No men in women's prison! Keep prison single sex!
Keep prison single sex!
No men in women's prison!
No men in women's prisons!
Keep the fox out of the hen house!
end. Some of you will be aware with Google. You can go into the Google Maps and things, and then you put photos and reviews for this site. So if those of you who've got photos and that sort of thing, you know what you're doing when you get home. Yeah,
Where are we going for drinks? Jules, can you hit the music? Absolutely. Thank you. Where are the speakers? Sorry.
fuck, sorry. Cameras off, cameras off. Yeah, if you can do it outside all the different women's prisons as well, and if you can get photos, particularly of that banner, the No Men in Women's Prison, and put it on the women's prison all over the country as well.
Copyright now.
Move back, move on here.
We have to move the other way. Hi there. So why are you protesting today in central London?
Because I don't believe there should be men in women's prisons.
And what effect do you think this protest will have outside the Ministry of Justice? Do you think the government will listen to you guys?
I think if we keep shouting long enough and loud enough, they'll have to. And the more the public becomes aware that this is happening and that it's a reality, it's not just a secret, it's a well-kept secret, shall we say. It's very difficult to get the statistics because the statistics get hidden. And the more public it's made, the better it is for women.
How long has this issue been going on for? And what solutions do you want to see to this problem?
It's been going on for several years now. It's probably been going on for longer than I'm aware of. We've been aware of it for quite a few years now, and this is not the first time we've come here. But there's a greater awareness now, and as long as awareness keeps growing, there's the possibility of change and common sense being replaced.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time on camera. Cheers. Head to Westminster. Yeah. Definitely. The barriers are.
Yeah. I think my parents.
Could be a Palestine protest there. Another one. I'm going to have a live stream now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
That's
I'm wrapping
fine.
Going to be ending the live broadcast now. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Louis Errington. I'm an independent journalist and I cover a broad variety of protests and events on the channel. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification button to stay notified whenever I go live or upload a new video. Be sure to share this stream with your friends and family so we can get more people watching. Also, thank you for tuning in and see you all on the next live broadcast.